Hey, I'm Riley, and this is the Superhuman Podcast. At Superhuman, we bring you cutting edge insights from health experts and high performance to help you unlock your body's full potential, supercharge your mind, and achieve more with less effort. Do you want to fix nagging health issues, boost productivity, spark genius ideas, master stress, build strong relationships, and increase your income? It all starts with optimizing your inner machinery. My guest today is Sam Harvey. Sam is a global leader consultant and the founder of Braver Leaders. He spent over 20 years leading teams up to 150 people across industries like manufacturing, hospitality, media, and tech, living and working in places from New York, the Caribbean, to London, and Dubai. He's also a former competitive sprinter and has studied world-class institutions, including Harvard, Edinburgh, specializing in performance psychology, organizational leadership, and coaching. Back in 2019, after his own transformation from addiction and burnout to 7 years of sobriety, he has launched Braver Leaders, a consultancy helping companies overcome growing pains and building connected, high-functioning leadership teams. His mission is simple but powerful, helping the world experience the joy of being in a great team. He now speaks and coaches globally on leadership, psychological safety, resilience, and building high performance cultures. Sam, welcome to the show.
That was a brilliant introduction. That was better than I've ever done for myself. So thank you very much. Pleasure to be here, Riley. Pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Cheers. It's really amazing, everything that you've done. And it's kind of like the combination of what your story is. I haven't seen anything like it. So I'm really excited to dive in today. I guess it would make sense starting at your turning point. You know, you've openly shared about getting fired in 2018 and that moment catalyzed for your sobriety and leadership philosophy. Can you take us back to that moment and how vulnerability became a strength rather than a weakness?
Yeah, man. I actually, as you said that, just went right back there and was like, oh, that was a day. I think leading up to that time, perhaps as a little bit of use as well, was about probably 15 years of being what I would call active addiction, where in reality, I was using and drinking out of control. And so there was this situation where I liked to be involved with people. I liked to be friendly and go out and do things like that. And so what, particularly in New Zealand and Australia, I know that, and in the UK, I think in the US too, there's definitely a desire to, or a social norm, which says come out and drink heavily. And so I was very much wrapped up in that. And so I would go out, I would drink, and I hated the feeling of being drunk. So I would go out and drink, and then I needed something to keep me up, right? And so I was using to counteract that, which is, when you say it out loud like that, it just sounds like madness, doesn't it? For probably the majority of my thesis leading up to when I did get fired, I was struggling with trying to. I'd have long periods of sobriety and then would go, can I go back to it now? Will I be normal, kind of thing? I wasn't saying it explicitly like that, but that was the sentiment was, I think I can do it normally now, right? But I couldn't. And I'd keep going back and it would just keep getting worse and worse. And there's a saying in addiction and alcoholism that it's a progressive illness. So it never gets better. It always gets worse. And that was certainly the case with me. It just got worse and worse. And bless you, the more I went back, the more I tried to do it myself, the worse it got. And really getting fired. And I wonder whether the people that fired me have ever listened to me talk about it. But if they were, I'd say thank you, because it actually made someone took a stand and it made me go, man, I have to change something now, because I really thought my life was crumbling around me. But in reality, it was just a job, and I mean, that's not taking away from the great work that company does, but it's just, it was just a job. And it was like, okay, so I went back to New Zealand, I reflected, I kind of got my thinking in order about what I wanted to do. But most importantly, I went into recovery. And so, yeah, it really did, as you say, it was a catalyst for me to go, okay, I have to start acting like a bit of a grown up now, because before that I wasn't.
Yeah. Makes a lot of sense. And you also talk about psychological safety, which is kind of new. Like I haven't really heard too much before, and a lot of people think of it as like this cozy feeling, but you describe it different. It's more the ability to challenge and disagree because of trust. Can you explain what like true psychological safety looks like inside a high performance team?
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely something which has gained a lot of traction over probably the last 20 years, I would say. Amy Edmondson's done a lot of work on it from Harvard, and Tim Clark from Oxford as well. So there's some really brilliant books out there on that. And Amy Edmondson talks a lot about its candor over coziness. And we say that it's the ability to conflict well. And so you don't really think of conflict as a positive thing in your business, do you, or in your life? But in
Sure.
reality, we spend so much of our lives actually in conflict, don't we? We disagree with somebody. We have just a simple differing of opinion is actually a mild conflict. And so when we've got this ability in our teams, to answer your question, we've got enough safety where we feel able to say what it is that's on our and actually bring up the thing that is bothering us and not be afraid of conflict. We create this incredible place where ideas can come out. And we now work, and this is the reason this has become so crucial, is we now work in knowledge work, don't we? You and I can jet around the world and have a conversation on a screen. And so what's actually important is up here, less so physical labor. And what that means is that we need to get these ideas out, right? And so actually high performance becomes less about like doing things physically in the workplace and more about, okay, I need all of the ideas I can out on the table. In order to do that, you have to make sure that people feel safe enough to speak up. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's fascinating. You think about the opportunity cost of not having all the ideas on the table and what's held back, and like not, it's like going to battle, not having all the battle intel before you get on the battlefield. Like, well, how do you
Exactly that.
expect to have the best outcome? Yeah, it's fascinating. And this kind of ties into stress and performance too. You often teach leaders about the pressure performance curve. How can leaders find that sweet spot where they're stretched but not burning out at the same time?
Yeah, great question. There is no simple answer.
Yeah, it's
Frustratingly,
pretty complex, I'm sure.
like what's the trick? The key is practice. And I had a lecturer, actually, Patricia Riddell, who spoke brilliantly on the neuroscience of the pressure performance curve, and she actually spoke a lot about how we actually looking at the way we plan our days so that we actually have breaks, so that we are not in that we're not tipping over the wrong side of the pressure performance curve, as it were.
Mm.
And so, and she talked a lot about, she used the example of marking assignments. So I'll use it here because it's a good one. She found that if she did 16 assignments and she marked them all in a row, she basically had to take a couple of days off. I might be getting that wrong, but it's like she had to take an extended period off. However, if she marked 8 in a row and then took a 30-minute break, she could do another 8 and then take another 30-minute break and then do another 8.
Wow.
So you see the point? Like, she's got this,
Yeah.
and you will have heard of, what do you call it? The Pomodoro technique, probably, where
Sure.
people do 25 minutes and 5 minutes off. Like that is one version of it. But the outtake here is to stay on the, because the pressure performance curve is a balance, and you want to be in flow, but you don't want to tip over the other side, because that's when you start losing, you start forgetting things, flight of ideas,
Burnout.
insomnia, all that sort of things. Those sort of
Yeah.
things. It's about experimenting with that. Okay, how many can I do? And then how long do I need to take off before I can go again? And then you find your own rhythm, as it were.
Yeah, it's very interesting, isn't it? Like, it's about a very dynamic yin and yang, and people go too far or they don't go enough. But when you find what that is for you, and in my world, you can look at all the biology and stuff, but in your world too, like it's so important. Like, if you push yourself too far, that opportunity cost of burning yourself out, it's just not worth it. And we're in a culture now where we can drink all the coffee we want, but it's just not going to work at the end of the day. But yeah, I think more and more people are becoming aware of it, which is really nice, especially when the science comes out, because that stuff you can't argue with. Being a leader as a coach, you said one of the hardest but most important skills for leaders is not giving advice. So how can leaders shift into being better coaches for their teams?
Great question. I think I would caveat that by saying that sometimes leaders need to give advice, and that coaching is one of the leadership styles. If we're looking at Dan Goleman's work, then there's 6. There's being coercive, there's being authoritative, affiliative, democratic, coaching, and then pace setting. So coaching is just one of the styles. So that's one caveat I would add to that, is make sure that you understand the others and you understand how to move between them and apply what's needed in the right situation. Because that's being a skillful leader, isn't it? Is knowing what's needed when. Because being a coach when the building's on fire is probably not the best idea. What do
Yeah,
you
it's not
think?
going to help too much.
Should we leave? But to go back to your question, being a coaching leader is a powerful modality, because what it does is it enables your team to think for themselves. And what we want And this ties nicely into the psychological safety discussion, doesn't it? Of, okay, we've got a bunch of people in this team. We want their ideas out. So we have to ask them what they think. And then we have to create the safety for them to actually be able to share what they think.
Mhm.
And being a more effective coach means that a few things. You listen more effectively. A lot of us in this world don't listen very effectively. We will pretend to listen, or we're simply waiting for our turn to speak. But in reality, if you can stay quiet and listen to what somebody's really saying and then respond, you're already, I'd say, more than 50% of the way there. So that's an important technique. And then really being able to ask questions to deepen somebody else's thinking, and having the belief that they are smart enough to figure things out on their own is a really powerful way to go into a conversation. Okay, you're smart, you're capable, Riley. I know that you know lots of stuff about superhuman performance, about sleep in particular. And so in reality, what would be the point in me coming in here and trying to tell you what to do when it comes to that sort of thing? Actually, what I should do is walk in with the view that you know a lot. I should ask you some really powerful questions to get your knowledge out and hear, what you have to say, and then listen.
Yeah, that's amazing. So you're bringing the best out of everybody, and you're asking that right question at the right time in a way that suits them to get them something, to realize something about themselves they may not have known before. Like they could self start themselves. So you coming in there and triggering that, I think that's very, very powerful. And is it based on you going in and knowing what the personality type is? So is that running personality tests and then you dynamically adjusting your leadership or coaching based on who they are as individuals?
Yeah, it's important to know the context, I think, of the person that you have in front of you. However, when someone appears, they will appear as who they are on that day. And so you've just framed it really well there, actually, because what coaching essentially is about often getting that person to hear their own thoughts. And when they hear their own thoughts, then they make decisions based on that, going, oh, do I really think that? And then they are able to challenge themselves. And then often the work happens out of the room, right? Because they'll go,
Interesting.
okay, that's interesting. I've said this and this and this. You prompted me with this. And then they go away and they think, do I really think that? And then that's when the work starts.
Okay. Got it. Cool. Now, most leaders don't walk in and set behavioral norms with their teams. What happens when they do? And what are some practical ways to co create that environment?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It is not the norm to do norms.
Yeah.
We bring so much into our work, which is from past jobs, from past relationships, from past lives, past whatever. I actually talked to a mentor of mine recently on a podcast that she talks about trauma informed leadership, and the idea that we bring all of our trauma with us into the workplace is very real, isn't it? And so being able to address things as that, and this whole antiquated view of check your baggage at the door, it just doesn't work. But I digress slightly. The point being that everybody's bringing all of their own stuff into the workplace, and to co-create, that's a brilliant word for it, is rather than inclusion, it's co-creation. A term inclusion always somewhat rubs me up the wrong way, because it's inclusion into what?
Yeah. I get the same thing as you say it. Yeah. I think a lot of other people have a name connotation too.
Yeah, right. Like it's a funny thing, isn't it? Because let's have it right. A lot of the workplaces around the world are established on norms of people who don't necessarily, or cultures that don't necessarily aren't very necessarily very inclusive. So really, what we've got an opportunity to do when we bring a new team together is say, what's the environment we want to live in here? Is it of play? Is it one of we work 3 hours a day? Is it okay, maybe that's not realistic, but you know what I mean? Like, how do you want to be in this role? One of the questions we ask a lot is, what do you want to be known for? And so when you ask that, people say, well, we want to be the best in this, or we want to be known for delivering this. And, okay, cool. What behaviors do you then need to display in order to be known for that? And then you get this beautiful kind of co-creation where people are coming together and saying, okay, yeah, I think we should do this. What do you all think? And you get often leaders who are not, they're a little bit wary of this, will go, oh, but then everybody will want to work 2 hours a day. And they don't realize that they get a say in this too. it's a co-creation. It's not just the team creates; it's you create too. You're part of the team, a part of the creation. And so yeah, it's a really it's a lovely way to bring everyone together, to get their ideas in there again, bringing everyone's ideas in and creating an environment for what success looks like for them.
It seems like you've developed all these structures and all these disciplines and all these scientific studies, and you have a structured way to bring leadership in such an effortless way where you're considering everybody's, each individual characteristics. It's a win-win for each individual. And it seems like everybody can bring their best selves to the table to the questions you're asking them. I think it's a brilliant approach. Has this been refined over the years? Has it been relatively the same? Can you tell me about that evolution, the approach that you use?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely something which has developed over the years. I mean, I
Yeah.
wouldn't have thought this way 7, almost 8 years ago, but yeah, it's yeah, and I mean, comes with study and research and that kind of thing, right? So you definitely refine your approach. We have a model called the Braver model, is looking at, we create psychological safety first, then we look at how we conflict well. Then we go through, well, why do you exist? What do you want to be known for? All right, what values do you want to espouse? Okay, what goals are you wanting to set to actually make sure that you do that? And then we teach people how to, we help them realize how to um, do their own, hold themselves accountable. Is what I'm trying to say. Because that's one of the bigger problems I see in the world of work that I'm in, is that people try and make themselves, like consultants, try and make themselves um, irreplaceable. And in reality, success comes from, oh, you should be able to do this yourself. And so we want to work ourselves out of a job. We always say we're like Nanny McPhee. I don't know if you've seen that movie.
Yeah.
But what does she say? When you need me but don't want me, I'll be there. When you want me but don't need me, I won't. And that's what we try and do.
That's
And so
good.
yeah, it's really developed over the years. And I mean, I've got, mate, I'm the one talking to you on a podcast now, but we've got a brilliant team around me that I've got a brilliant team around me that are far smarter than I am, have got brilliant qualifications, who, bring in all of this expertise that says, yeah, okay, we can do this better. And so, yeah, it's developed with their help for sure.
Fascinating. Now, I'm curious on a personal level, you face depression, burnout, and tough setbacks on the road to building your own company. What practices are keeping you grounded and able to show up as your best self daily?
Sleep,
Sleep's a big one.
sleep. Oh man,
Yeah.
I love to sleep. When I was depressed, it was through a series of kind of, just bad decisions that led to me, a relationship breakup and that kind of thing. And yeah, through that year, and it was the best part of a year, I was just not sleeping well, and really just had a very low self opinion, very low self worth. And so I think love him or hate him, I like a couple of things that Jordan Peterson says, that, so you don't have to explain yourself. I love that one from the 12 rules. And, I don't subscribe to everything he says, don't get me wrong, but I like there's a couple of them I cherry pick. That sort of thing. So it's really, that old saying of do the right thing even when no one's looking. And then prioritizing sleep, prioritizing, as I get older, I mean, I'm in mid 40s now, lifting heavy, eating leafy greens and high fat fish and all of that good stuff, so that I do sleep better. But then also my own stress pressure performance curve means that I have to shut down in the weekends. I got to be off. And this Sunday I'm going to sit on the beach with my sister and my nephew, and
Oh, nice.
probably covered in sand and snot from my nephew, but also British coastline weather, but it'll be amazing. And so like that sort of me is, I mean, that all of the work that, I forget the guy's name, that the guy did in the looking at the blue zones, so much of it was connection, wasn't it? Like actually having a community around you. So talking constantly to the people that I call my friends, who are absolute lunatics. You all know who you are. Um, uh, but like, that really is what keeps me on the straight and narrow, to have this amazing community around me, sleeping well, lifting heavy and training hard, and enjoying life.
Sounds superhuman.
It's not though, is it? It's just actually human, but it
Yeah.
turns you into the ability to handle, like, you're absolutely right. Like the superhumanness, or the ability to do extra things, comes from the simple things, doesn't it?
Yeah. You really need that as the foundation first. Yeah. There's so many fancy things out there, but you have to get the foundation first. If you don't, it's not going to even matter anyway. So you got to focus on the different phase and go from there. Love it, Sam. I really appreciate you sharing everything. If people want to learn more about you, where can they visit?
Braverleaders.com, or you can find me on LinkedIn is probably the place that's best. If you just search the handle Team Performance Experts, I will generally come up. And find me in any of those places. There should be enough information if you want to reach out.
Cool. I will put that all down in the show notes below. All right, guys, thank you for tuning in. I hope you got a ton of value from today's episode. If you're ready to take your health and performance to the next level, get our free Superhuman Guide at getsuperhuman.io. Hit subscribe, share this with someone who needs it, and I'll see you in the next episode. Stay superhuman.